Right, we had another meeting, so we're just going to take a quick second to get organized here. All right, we're going to go ahead and call the Monday, October 7th City Council meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance to the flag, and I think I see Nancy Call out there somewhere. We would like you to lead us today in the Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah, do you remember it? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Brava. I really like. All right. May we have a roll call, please, Madam City Clerk? Here. Present.
Here.
Vice Mayor.
Here.
Muted.
Mayor Coulson.
Here. So we do not have any requests for AB 2449 remote participation, and we did not hold a closed session, so there would be no report out. So our next item will be upcoming events. And I have a few things here. So from our library, we have a fall book sale, October 17th to the 20th. Please join us at the library. The benefits of this will go to the foundation. We also have Murder at the Monument, which is presented by the Burlingame Historical Society. It's for adults. It's Wednesday, October 30th, 7 p.m. in the Lane Room, featuring our guest speaker, retired Burlingame Police Chief Jack Van Etten. And this will be a, I think of just, let's see, it looks like it's just going to be a fun topic where we're going to sit down and join the former detective sergeant as he revisits the shocking event. And that's really good for Halloween. It's kind of, I think it's supposed to be like a scary thing. Booked on Crime discussion group in person, another good, spooky, not scary thing. Booked on Crime is the Burlingame Library's discussion group for the classic modern mysteries, spy novels, and true crime. We meet in person in the main library, upper level room at 6 p.m. on the third Thursday of each month. The upcoming title on October 17th is The Stolen Coast by Dwyer Murphy. Adrift in a sleepy coastal Massachusetts town, a man who ferries fugitives by day gets twisted up in a plot to pilfer diamonds in this Casablanca-infused novel. So that is what's going on in our library. I know that on October 18th, Friday night, we're having a very fun sing-along at the Burlingame Community Center. And the song is Grease. The whole movie is Grease. So if you like singing along with Sandra Dee and Vinny, get over there, bring your kids, bring your family, bring yourself, and let's have fun with that. We also have the ballot boxes are now open, so you can drop your ballot off both at City Hall, you'll see here, and you can drop off at the community center. And one more.
There's one on Broadway outside of the Walgreens.
Okay, and one at Broadway outside of the Walgreens. And
You want an I Voted sticker designed by our local student. You can pick them up either at the community center or here at City Hall. I'm happy to give you as many stickers as you want.
And all this is getting ready for the big event, which is the election on November 5th. So mark it on your calendar. Ballots are in the mail. All right. Any other upcoming events that colleagues have and want to present? No, I don't. Yep. I think we have one more too. I have one more. I think we should talk One Shoreline, start getting that on the November 16th. Yeah.
Yeah, just a reminder, we have our annual Fall Fest on Howard Avenue coming up on October 27th. If you haven't been to it, it's a lot of fun. I hope to see you all there.
Fantastic. And then another one I know we're going to have is on Saturday, November 16th. We will have one shoreline land matterment presenting at the community center about the potential work that we're going to be doing to put adaptation strategies, the options for the Burlingame Bay managed protection. So everyone is welcome for that.
And not to belabor the point, but it's not only the Bayside that can get hurt by rising sea level. As the seas rise, the creeks back up, and many of us in Burlingame have the threat of increased flood insurance premium going up, and so forth. So finding a way to protect our city against sea level rise in the long term, or at least the medium term, is really important for everybody who lives here, not just people who want to walk on the Bay Trail. So I urge you to come and listen and learn and help us figure it out. Thank you.
Okay, yes, Peter, do you have another one?
Nope.
Nope, you're good. And sorry, Vice Mayor. And Councilwoman Papajohn?
Nope.
Okay, and Councilwoman Lee, anything?
No.
Okay, fantastic. All right, if there are no other, does any member of the public have something they want to announce? An upcoming event? All right, no one wrote in, Madam City Clerk? Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and close item number 6, upcoming events, and we're going to move to presentations. We have 2 presentations tonight. The first one is a proclamation recognizing October 2024 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And the second one will be a proclamation honoring a certain someone special in our audience. So just hang out, wait for the first one, and then we'll do, I think, where a lot of our people are here for. You can hear them both. So welcome. Do we have a member of Cora here? Yes, come on up.
Good evening.
And I see Madam City Clerk is here with us because
Here as a board member. City clerk.
she is our wonderful city staff who gets so involved in community affairs. Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. She stepped up and joined the board of Cora. So we're really, really happy. So thank you for attending as a public citizen right now, as opposed to the city clerk. Please go right ahead.
Thank you, City Council members. My name is Melissa Gibbs, and I am the manager of Cora's Legal Services Program. It's an honor as representative Cora and someone who grew up in Burlingame to receive the proclamation recognizing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. These proclamations are so critical because it is an opportunity for us to call out a crime that often happens behind closed doors. Intimate partner abuse, unfortunately, is more common than any one of us would like. And when we call it out in public, we have an opportunity for folks to come forward, to share their stories, and to seek support. Cora is the only agency in San Mateo County that is solely dedicated to supporting victims and survivors of intimate partner violence. To provide an overview of our services, we have a 24-hour hotline that folks can call day or not to provide crisis intervention services for those that need it in that moment, but also to provide domestic violence education and resources to anyone who might be experiencing domestic violence themselves or know somebody who is experiencing it. We have safe housing. We have 2 safe houses located in San Mateo County. These are confidential locations where folks can come, spend a period of time in safety, regroup, and figure out what their path forward might be away from the abuse. We also have a supportive housing program where we provide over $1 million of HUD state funding to individuals in rental assistance so that they can maintain a safe living environment away from their abuser. We offer legal advocacy and representation to individuals who are going through the family court system. We have mental health services, individual and group counseling for children as well as adults, as well as family therapy. Cora also has a range of community education and prevention programs for families, youth, and community members. All of our services are free and confidential. If you or if any member of the public is experiencing intimate partner violence or knows somebody who is, please call our 24-hour hotline at 1-800-300-1080. Thank you again to the Burlingame City Council for honoring or for recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. We really appreciate it. And I would like to invite, yes, Ms. Castle Sheriff, she would like to say something.
Thank you. I just want to, this organization is obviously near and dear to my heart, and I am very proud of the work that this organization does. You know, you never want to be the person that has to call, but it's so great that we have all these services in our community for free. And the sooner we can do education and get people to realize that everyone deserves a healthy relationship, the better. So they do a great job of doing youth education, and they have the Speak Up program that we help sponsor here. And I'm just extremely proud of the work that they do.
Thank you. And I think they're having,
Yes, we're having our fall fundraiser on Thursday. There's still tickets available. And if you have any questions,
it's right here local, I think in Millbrae.
Yep.
So easy to get to. So anyone who wants to
Very-
go can go onto the Cora website and still purchase a ticket.
Yep.
Great.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, stay up for a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation, and then I'm going to open it up to colleagues who might have a word or two to say. So recognizing October 2024 is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, whereas more than 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men, and 1 in 2 transgender individuals experience some form of physical or sexual violence and or stalking by their intimate partner in their lifetime. And the marginalization of certain groups in society, including undocumented individuals, transgender individuals, and people living with disabilities, increases their vulnerability to domestic violence. And there were 8,275 requests for service through Community Overcoming Relationship Abuse, CORA's 24-hour hotline, and law enforcement referrals last year, and 2,378 adults and teens received community education on healthy relationships and the impact of intimate partner abuse. And in San Mateo County, 94 adults and children were provided emergency shelter, 76 households were provided longer-term rental assistance to escape their abusers last year, and 485 adults and children received therapy to help them with domestic violence-related trauma. And CORA fielded 1,925 requests for legal assistance. And intimate partner violence continues to be among the most underreported of crimes. And Burlingame is committed to eliminating all forms of intimate partner abuse. Now, therefore, I, Donna Colson, Mayor of City of Burlingame, do hereby recognize October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and to raise awareness about and encourage all residents of Burlingame to do their part to help rid our community of intimate partner violence. So that's such a beautiful proclamation. Thank you so much. I want to turn it over to colleagues who might have a comment or two they would like to make. Would anyone like to go first? Yes, please, Councilwoman Papajohn.
Sure. I'll just make a short comment. Thank you for your presentation, such an important topic. And I just think that we as a council and our community should provide unwavering support to survivors. And I think this is a great way to have some awareness of all your services. They seem so broad and deep, and it's just great that they are at no cost. And I know there's still more work to do because we're here. So we, support the proclamation, and, we all have a duty to ensure that no one experiences such abuse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Anyone else? Would you like to say
Sure.
something, Councilwoman Lee? Please.
Thank you, Mayor Colson. Thank you for the work you do. I think it's, really vital that we address this. It does cross race, age, socioeconomic class. And there is so much shame involved when people are abused that it's important that all of us are a friend to people and give them an option to, or an opportunity to speak up and refer them to you if we suspect that's going on.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anyone? Yes, Vice Mayor Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. I had the good fortune of visiting the center in San Mateo last year, and getting a full tour. And it's very impressive in terms of how holistic the support is for intimate violent survivors or victims and their support. I agree with my colleagues that this is a very important topic. I like the fact that we have an awareness month, but frankly, every month should be the awareness month. And so thank you for what you do. I actually have a short story. 2 days ago, I was in Burlingame doing a Burlingame Live event, and a woman stopped me on the street, and she seemed lost, and she was shaking, and she was definitely crying. She had just gotten off a bus, escaping domestic violence in a different state, and just wanted help. And so I got on my phone and we called Cora. So I hope she's now in the fold, so to speak, but it's happening all the time, and that's why it needs to be something that's always on the top of our mind.
Yes, Councilman Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for sharing that story, Councilmember Stevenson. It's a little hard to go after that story. That's pretty powerful. The real world. I guess I would just say that I think that we up here should not be judged on whether we can help developers or help the wealthy or help the people who are connected or the people who already have so much. I think at the end of the day, we need to be judged on helping the voiceless and the powerless and the people who are unseen. And so I do appreciate very much Cora both shining a light and throwing a lifeline to people who need it. And we're all in this together. So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you. And I am really grateful right now to my colleagues for all those amazing words. Domestic violence comes in many forms, and it doesn't know race, gender, socioeconomic. It comes. And when it comes, it is overwhelming. And what's interesting to me always is people always assume there's a particular stereotype of what a person might look like or who that person might be and what their life is like. And so I just say that what I appreciate about you is that you are open to everyone and available to everyone. It's not something that's easy for people to talk about. It can feel very, very like almost embarrassing. Like, how did I allow myself to get into a situation like that? And then how do I extract? And sometimes even those you love, like your parents, when you call them and say, hey, I really, really need help, they don't believe you, they don't understand, or they just can't comprehend. So having a third-party agency that is available is so important. And I am incredibly grateful for the work you do. I'm going to see you on Thursday night. Going to your event. Very happy. So really, thank you, Megan, Madam City Clerk, both Megan and Madam City Clerk, both, for having the foresight to bring this up and put this on the agenda. And to all of the people sitting up here with me who I know will go to the farthest setting to make sure that every single person in our community is safe. So if it's okay, we would like to come down and present you the proclamation and take a picture.
City overcoming religion.
Here is your proclamation. You can turn it that way. Squeeze in here, everyone. You want to go next? No. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's such a
Appreciate it. We'll see you.
Yeah, see you
I'm
on
so
Thursday.
glad you're coming. Nice to see you again. Bye.
All right, we are moving on to our second proclamation, which is a really exciting and heartfelt, beautiful celebration of a person who I have known for almost the 30 years that she's been in business in this town. It is my great honor and my great pleasure to welcome up to our dais and to our stand here, Nancy Call, the founder and owner of Art Attack. Please come on up. It's a huge deal. And I'm going to go the opposite with you. I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation that we prepared for you. And then you can add on some comments or anything. Actually, maybe I'll even let you, would you guys like to go first or would you like, we'll have her go first. Yeah, I just never know what people want to say and how they're going to handle. So we'll let you go first and say a few words about your life and your business and the work you've done here. And then we'll go ahead and conclude up here with an opportunity for each of us to say a little bit about what we share and know about you over the years. So this is a proclamation recognizing 30 years of Art Attack and Nancy Call's commitment to the Burlingame community. Nancy Call's love of art and community has fostered 30 years of artistic expression and friendship at her Art Attack studio. And Nancy Call grew up in Burlingame, and after graduating from the University of California, Santa Barbara with a degree in studio art with an emphasis on oil painting, she moved back to the Bay Area. And Nancy and her husband raised their 4 children, Allison, Angela, Audrey, and Anthony in Burlingame, with all of whom I think are here, with a commitment to bettering their community. And in 1995, Nancy opened Nancy Call Torres Art Studio, which originally held 3 weeks of camp for 12 kids, then 10 weeks of camp for 40 kids, and then year-round after-school classes for kids and teens, and eventually added adult classes and expanded her business out of her garage to an independent studio location named Most Darling Art Attack. An Art Attack at 1810 Magnolia Avenue offers 16 classes from fall to spring. I think I'm taking 8 of them, 5 classes in the summer, and 9 weeks of summer camp, serving roughly 200 students per semester. And Nancy is a big believer in giving back to the community. And Art Attack has donated countless classes, camps, and parties to local schools and nonprofit fundraisers. And Nancy's goal for Art Attack has always been to be a warm and welcoming place, a support group, and a safe space to explore unique and diverse perspectives while building lifelong friendships. Now, therefore, I, Donna Colson, Mayor of the City of Burlingame, do hereby recognize and celebrate Art Attack's 30th anniversary and Nancy Call for her commitment to artistic expression and the community. So, yeah. So we'll go ahead and have you speak up this way because the camera will capture you, which will be beautiful, and your friends can all watch you on the screen. I know it's a little hard sometimes, but you're gonna do great. So why don't you go ahead and just tell us maybe a little bit about your history and the love you have for this, and then we'll all add a few words.
Oh, that's very kind. Yeah, I'm just so thrilled today to be here. And I don't think I had any idea when I started teaching out of the garage 30 years ago that I would be ending up here still. And to see how it expanded over the years, it has been an amazing opportunity. And it's one that my whole family came along with me and they were there for the whole thing. My son, Anthony, was a year old when we started. And my daughter, Angie, was my partner. She's over there. She was my business partner at the beginning. And we did, she taught dance and I taught painting, gardening, and crafts at the very beginning and when it was in the garage. And it was so much fun. I think there was a lot of parents I remember who came up after me like so shocked, like that their children were suddenly like deadheading flowers in the backyard and like had all these skills. So where did this come from? But it was really fun and it evolved over the years into like different renditions where we taught drama. And then eventually we moved out to the outside space now where we do painting and field trips and and have it for all these different levels. And one of the amazing parts to me has been seeing how the generations have changed. So kids who were babysitters for me when, like for Anthony, when I was teaching, then they grew up and then they were taking classes. And then all of a sudden now I've got their children in classes too, and they're coming back as adults. So to see that happen is just absolutely phenomenal. My daughter, Allie, is the one who came up, made sure that Art Attack got the sign up and was the one who really committed me to that name. And then my daughter, Audrey, is the one who's working with me now to hopefully take over it one day and keep it going so that Burlingame will have another generation's worth of Art Attack after I'm around. So anyway, it's been a real pleasure and a joy and an amazing gift to be part of. So thank you.
Thank you. Will you just stay right up there for a second?
Right.
I do want to recognize that this is the largest crowd we've ever had for a proclamation in the 10 years that I've been on. So well done, you. Excellent. But I want to open it up to colleagues who I'm sure every one of us has had some opportunity to either see Nancy's beautiful work or have our own children in. So is there anyone who would like to open? Please, Councilman.
Happy to go first.
Councilman Browning.
So I was very happy to see this on our agenda. You probably don't know, but the mayor creates the agenda with the city manager to make sure we do the important work of the city, and those of us on council wait till Thursday to see what exactly we're going to be doing on the following. I was delighted to see this. My children are 31, 29, 27, and 20, and they are all artists because of you.
Yay.
Just last week, my son circulated to the family on WhatsApp the latest pots that he was throwing and how proud he was. And he promptly got several orders from his brothers for coffee cups for Christmas. And so I just want to thank you as a parent and just a deep appreciator of the work that you do to teach everyone or anyone who's smart enough to show up anything that we all can be artists. It's not some magic. It's not limited to a given person. Everyone has it in them to be creative, and they just need to be encouraged to see that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone down there? Andrea, would you?
Sure, I will.
Councilwoman Papajohn.
Wow, such a nice statement, Councilmember Brownrigg. I was just going to comment. First of all, just congratulations, 30 years. I mean, that is just such a milestone. And, to have a business for that long is just a really testament to how wonderful it is. I just have a comment. I have, as a parent, I've had other parents whose children, and one in particular really stands out because she just absolutely, she said, oh, my daughter just loves to spend time there. And when she was in middle school, she would work on she's working on a leaf, and she spent like an hour or two just on the leaf. And I was like, wow, just what an environment. It must have been really therapeutic for her to be able to just stay in that concentration. So that really stuck with me. And, I'm just really impressed by your business and glad you're in Burlingame. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Vice Mayor, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. First of all, congratulations, not just to you, obviously, your entire family's in on this, which is really fun to see. I unfortunately probably the least artistic in my family, but I was
Because you've
encouraged.
been to Art Attack, Peter.
I was encouraged by some of your early work in gardening, because I can grow tomato plants with no fruit, which is pretty amazing. No, but I think teachers are heroes, and not just in the classroom, but across society and across our community. And so the fabric you've added to the experience of folks here in Burlingame, and I'm sure you're serving parents and kids in other communities locally, but really impressive, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Councilwoman Lee.
Thank you, Mayor Colson. Congratulations, and thank you for your contributions to our community. I went to your website. I saw Mayor Colson there with an impressive, a woman of many talents. And I think any form of art is good for our mental well-being. It takes us out of our ruminating linear thought. It allows us to create and express something that can't be done in words. So I can see that you've built community with your students, and that's something we all aim to do, is build community. You've addressed, consciously or not, you've addressed loneliness in our community by building community, and you've given people a way to express themselves and improve their mental well-being. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll bring it home here. So I've been with Nancy for probably 25 or 24 of those years. And it's just been my great pleasure to know you as a person and as a friend, as a businesswoman, and as an artist, because I've had the wonderful opportunity to travel and paint with Nancy as a colleague, in addition to just an artist, teacher. And she is, when she paints standing outside plein air, people gravitate toward her. They surround her. Next thing you know, there are 10 people around her watching her, because she has that charismatic element and sort of pureness in her art and her being, that I think people just sense and feel and can walk up to you, and they love watching you. And I also think that's why we have 30 people here today to support you, because it's more, to Council Member Lee's comment, it's more than just a training. You've done both my children, you've done me, and now my husband has signed up. I kind of told him it was off, it's kind of a woman's place, and he was like, no, I'm going anyway. So we're having him now too. So it's a family affair for us. And, this job that we all do up here is so hard. And for me personally, it is the one safe space that I can go to and like just block everything out. Nobody asks me. Very rarely do people complain or ask, every now and then, not often. But they see that I'm in my low focus, and you've created that safe space for people to come and share and become friends and enjoy their art. So you're just an absolute treasure in this community. And Audrey, I really hope you can keep this going for another, so we can do the 50th anniversary someday. It would be wonderful. Burlingame, people always say, like, they get very wound up about the built environment and this building and that building. And I always tell them, it's not the built environment that makes Burlingame charming and special and unique. It's the people. And you are one of those very special people that has made Burlingame an incredible place to live, raise your children, be, and through your art and through just your love and kindness to everyone that comes through your door. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would any members of the public like to comment this evening? Please do come up. Yeah, we have room for everybody. Just take your time.
So my name is Casey Watson. I've known Nancy for 7, 8 years. And I was so impressed with my first painting. I was like, wow, I can't believe how talented I am. And so I've been painting, and Nancy's like, you don't have to have straight lines. You can just kind of do it. And I'm like, okay. So then a few weeks ago, Nancy was in a real jam, and she asked me if I could drive for summer camp. And so she had, how many different camps did you have? You had candy camp. How many different camps? Tell her what the camps were.
Animal camps, like paint a pet.
Dessert camp.
Yeah, dessert week.
Dessert camp.
I can't even.
Yes.
Tons of
We're doing the candy camp. And so Nancy says, if you just want to stay in the car, you can. I said, no, I'll go with you. So we go to one candy shop, and the kids are, sketching out the candy. We go to another candy shop, and then we go to Ghirardelli Square, and we eat, chocolate sundaes and do that. And then we come back, and, I said, okay, I'm done. So, but Nancy said, well, why don't you come back to the last day of camp so you can see what these kids have created? So I said, okay. So I go, and here are 15 children? Yeah. And so they had ceramic pieces of art that they had created. Nancy said, I stayed up till 3 a.m. putting all those things in my oven, getting them hard, and So they all had a piece of ceramic and they all have a painting, you know, and Nancy has the whole class just beautifully done up with a little music and little lemonade, and the kids are so proud and the parents are just blown away at the talent that has come out of these children in 1 week. So God bless you, Nancy.
Yeah. Ms.
Oh.
Lampkin.
No wonder my children liked your classes so much.
I'm just so happy to be here with my good friend. And I think that possibly Mayor Colson, I've been at Nancy's a little bit longer than you.
Oh, yes, you have for sure.
Oldest student at the studio, but I have paid the most registrations.
I
I was the original VC for this enterprise.
There's a line in the city budget. It says tax collected from Pam Lampkin, and it's you.
So my husband now is retired and he keeps going like, there's a lot of canvases here. And I go, yeah, you know, some will go to the dump. Well, no. No, what I wanted to say, Nancy, was that it's not only your spark. She's known as Fancy Nancy. It's not only your passion, it's also the draw of people that she hires.
Mhm.
So I was fortunate enough to start in her garage. Then I moved to Carol Ann's, where she had a little studio, maybe only for a summer. Then we moved to the little studio, and now we're in the bigger studio. And along the way, she has had some extraordinary staff members who have taken the essence of what she believes in and expanded it. We had Jason, who was fabulous portrait artist, Susie, who was one of her first partners, who had this wonderful contemporary edginess to her that was very nice. And now we've got some other friends of mine who have actually become teachers, and I, in fact, have done several years there. So I just want to thank you because the space invites people in and asks you to leave your troubles at the door. And I think for me, it is my third space in Burlingame. I have my family, I have my career, and then I have my artwork, and it's centered at Art Attack.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and see you at the studio.
Thank you all. So what if we come down to do a photo with your proclamation with us? And then if it is the pleasure of those of you in the audience, I'm sure that Jeremy would oblige us for a giant group photo with everyone up. Okay? All right, let's start.
Jeremy can come. Then on Lisa's.
You can stand on the dais
Yeah,
and
yeah.
take it down. We'll do that.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay, here you go. This is your beautiful proclamation that you can frame.
Thank you.
But- Okay, come on up, ladies, and everyone.
Kids, come on, sisters.
We're gonna do a 180.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You stand in front. All right. Oh, yeah. It's like being in the background.
Okay.
Yeah, you need space.
Next generation.
Lower on her.
Give us a warning.
Just start. Right.
Yeah.
Ready? Everybody ready?
Can you see everybody, Jeremy?
Yep, I got everyone.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Councilwoman. Yeah, Peter. Oh, it's Peter, no.
Me too.
You're the one who has-
Okay, that's great. All right, thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody.
All right, we're gonna just give it a minute for them to clear out here. And our next item on the agenda is public comments for non-agenda items. And I do have one yellow card. Is that all I have? Okay, thank you, Madam City Clerk. So if I could have Rick Calvin, is that how I say? Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Calvin. Please come on up here and you have 3 minutes to go ahead and give your comment. Of course, you understand because of the Brown Act, it's not agendized item. We cannot reply here today, but we can certainly take anything you say under consideration.
I understand.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Colson and council members. I am here specifically, well, first, let me give you a background. My name is Rick Colbin, lived in Burlingame my whole life. I love the town. Been in my present location for over 40 years. I live on Peninsula Avenue, and I'm here because I've actually exchanged a few emails this last week with Vice Mayor Stevenson on this matter. The traffic situation on Peninsula Avenue is near and dear to me for all these years. There was recently a tragedy. We all know about that. I can honestly say 2 years ago, my next door neighbor was also killed on Peninsula Avenue in the crosswalk coming from Woodlake over to Peninsula Avenue side, Burlingame side. I don't have the history here, so I can't really address all of the discussions and the whatever plans I've done. I know the interchange that was originally on an agenda is now on hold. My concern with this is because there's 2 cities involved, that there's feet dragging on this issue, and I think it needs to be urgently addressed. Over the years, traffic situation has just gotten progressively worse. I can honestly say in 40 plus years, I've counted maybe 10 times that police have actually been on either side of the street issuing tickets that I've ever noticed. And when I address them, I ask them, can you possibly come out here more? They always say, that's not our call. You have to talk to the council. They have to, budget it and all that sort. So all I'm doing tonight is just to say my opinion is you need to urgently address this issue. It's only getting worse. The high school kids obviously affected, but I honestly also want to say that it seems like nighttime is almost worse because there is such a preponderance of space between one light to the next light that people just feel like it's a freeway to speed. And I've had numerous close calls over the years, and I just don't want to see anyone else get hurt. So that's all I wanted to say. So thank you for your
Thank you very much for taking your evening and sitting through 30 minutes of other presentations. We are very grateful. Any other public comments, Madam City Clerk? Okay. Anyone else in the audience who might like to make a comment? Now would be the time. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Thank you. Item number 9, approval of the consent calendar. Is there anyone who would like to remove an item from the consent calendar, please? Yes, Council Member Lee, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Colson. I'd like to remove item J, the quarterly investment report.
All right, thank you very much. Is there any other item anyone would like to remove?
No, I just have a comment on one of the items, but not to remove it.
I think you can pull it off if you want to make a comment on it. You need to pull it off.
You know what?
It's okay.
You can pull it off.
All right, it is item number C, please.
That's perfect because members of the public also have comments.
Okay.
All right, we have item C, electric micromobility, and we have item J. Is there anyone else who wants to pull an item? Okay, is there any member of the public? Was it just C?
Line C.
Okay, great. Well, we'll go ahead and start with C then, since it's, well, first of all, why don't I go ahead and get an approval or a motion, please?
If I may make a motion, Madam Mayor, to approve items 8A, B, D, E, F, G, and H.
Second.
All right, we have a motion,
Aye.
an aye.
Sorry.
So then no problem. We have a motion by Councilman Brownrigg and a second by Vice Mayor Stevenson. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Papajohn,
Aye.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stevenson,
Yes.
Mayor Coulson.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Motion carries unanimously. We'll move to item C. I think we should start with the councilwoman and see what you would like to say, and then we can move to public comment.
Great, thank you, Mayor Coulson. Yep, I'm fully in support of the ordinance as it's written. I just had conversations with some community members, specifically some bike advocates, and they just, really wanted me to mention that they felt that, that they wish we could really only enforce class 2 and 3 because they felt that class 1 is pedal assist and it only goes up to 20 miles an hour. And they felt that maybe that it was going to be really hard to enforce, to see the difference between a regular bike and a class 1. And so I guess I just wanted to bring up so we could hear their voice, and I will be really interested, to see how the enforcement goes and if there's any difficulty in making that distinction.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Member of the public, please.
Yeah, we have one person and one email. So I'll read the email first. It's from Mike Swire. He states, thank you for your actions to improve safety in Burlingame. Thank you to members Papa John and Lee for raising concerns with the previous ordinance. And thank you to Mayor Coulson for moving the Bay Trail in the new ordinance. Despite these improvements, I still do not believe that the revised ordinance is the best way for Burlingame to make its citizens more safe. One, while I understand that the city can multitask, if improving safety is the goal, I would recommend that the city focus its precious council and PD time and resources on the carnage on Burlingame streets. At a previous meeting, the chief of police said that there had been 0 reports of e-bike crashes in parks. Meanwhile, last week in Burlingame, a driver killed Yolanda Villar, a single mother of a special needs child. The tragedy occurred on Peninsula where pedestrians frequently face deadly conditions. Video on Nextdoor. In the past dozen or so years, 12 people have died on Burlingame Street, 77 have been seriously injured, and another 1,200 have been injured. Of those killed or seriously injured, 28% were people on foot and 24% were people on bikes. Many more crashes go unreported, as do close calls. These are the people that most need council action. 2, the city already has laws in place to enforce safe riding in parks. Per BMC 13.52.180 in the packet, riders must yield to pedestrians in public parks and playgrounds and obey all posted park rules and speed limits. Nevertheless, when I walked through Washington Park yesterday, I saw no such signage or speed limits at entrances. Why implement a heavy-handed ban on e-bike use when we haven't first tried to enforce existing laws? Why not first try an education campaign as was successful for helmet use? 3, the proposed regulation punishes Burlingame residents who ride safely because of the actions of a few bad apples. When an SUV driver recently intentionally crushed several kids in Burlingame, we prosecuted the bad behavior instead of outlawing SUVs. Why the different treatment for people who bike? 4, if e-bikes are so dangerous, why are we exempting their use by public personnel? 5, banning e-bikes use in the parks will mean more kids instead riding on adjacent streets. Has the city studied whether these streets are safe? Around Washington Park, there are 0 bike lanes to protect kids on bikes. Instead, Carolyn provides free car storage for drivers. Why are there bike lanes on Carolyn west of Oak Grove, but none in front of Burlingame High School in Washington Park? Thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with the city on improving safety in Burlingame, especially where it is most needed and for those who need it most. And then we have Matt Jones.
Come on up.
Hi, everyone. You could probably guess which item I'm going to talk about. It's the micro mobility ordinance on e-bikes. Thank you for taking the time to discuss this important topic. I am Silicon Valley Bike Coalition's new advocacy director. I grew up and spent a lot of time in my childhood enjoying Burlingame's parks and downtown. Burlingame has long been an important partner of the Bike Coalition, from the discussions we've had on the California Avenue bike lanes, or last week when we provided the city with a letter of support for your proposal for the much needed Broadway Caltrain crossing project. At the Bike Coalition, our goal is to create safer streets, paths, and trails for folks from 8 to 80. E-bikes play a critical role in improving public health for our youth and seniors by expanding access to those who might not otherwise ride bikes. And they help us deal with some of the concerns we have with alleviating traffic concerns in communities. This de facto e-bikes ban in Burlingame's parks was brought to my attention by community members who are concerned about the impact this will have on those who live, work, and play in Burlingame. It was unfortunate that Burlingame decided to implement this policy without proactively involving us in the process. But with that said, I would like to thank you for amending your ordinance so that e-bikes can remain on the SF Bay Trail area. Policy, I believe, should be implemented in a way that is thoughtful and inclusive. We look forward to continuing to partner with you on policies like this moving forward or at an earlier stage. While there are ways that we can proactively encourage biking, we believe we can do this while also addressing concerns that we might have about conflict between e-bikes and pedestrians. For example, we had discussed, Councilmember Papajohn addressed the failure to distinguish between classes. We would like to entertain perhaps a proposed amendment to the ordinance as written so that we could distinguish between those classes, tighten up that language perhaps, and be able to create a carve out for class ones for folks who would only go to a maximum of 20 miles per hour. Something like that might be more proactive. We would also like to look at things like a program perhaps to widen paths and trails and create markings between those who would be walking and biking so that we can provide additional access in parks. We have very good trail policies in places like East Bay Regional Park District, cities like Foster City that have great informational videos that break down the different classes and say what safe riding looks like. Lastly, I wanted to promote a class that we have that's coming up through the Bike Coalition. I believe that education is a very important way that cities can create carrots for residents to encourage responsible ridership. So I would like to invite all of our council members and Burlingame community members to participate in our class on e-bikes. It's an online class, Monday, October 21st from 12 to 1 on Eventbrite. And this is with generous support from the Peninsula Clean Energy. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up on that, if you could send that information, I'm sure I'm also on PCE board, so I'm happy to work with them, but if someone could get the information to our city clerk, then we can put that in our e-news. That would be very helpful. All right. So we have had this item pulled. Does anyone else have any comments they want to make? Okay. All right. We have no additional comments. Any other members of the public? No? Okay, I'm going to close this item and Madam City Clerk, may we have a roll call vote? Oh, we need a motion, sorry. All right, pardon. Would someone like to make a motion? Anyone? All right, I'll make the motion. Motion to this is the second, I believe the second reading, correct? An adoption of an ordinance adding chapter 13.56 electronic mobility devices to Title 18, blah, blah, et cetera, et cetera. I also will just comment here that I personally have received hundreds of emails and letters from people who live in Burlingame and have supported this. And just to make it clear, it's not a ban. And I'm really happy they've hired you and you knew the new advocate person. And it would be similar for us to reach out to you. It would be very helpful if before a big e-blast goes out that contains sort of email and information, maybe it could be run by us too. Like it would be good if it were a two-way collaboration. Because I fielded hundreds of emails from people that don't live in Burlingame who were concerned about our parks, and I'm happy to do that. But it is, it's very hard to explain over and over again, that Burlingame is not banning e-bikes, because that was the title of the email that went out. So we look forward to working with you, and please feel free to share your information. Email me. It would be great to have a collaborative partner in this. Okay, anything? Then if not, we'll just go ahead and take yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And
Personally, I'm for micro-mobility in our society. I think our challenge is how do we ensure a thoughtful progression and transition to these forms of transportation, not just for our kids, but for commuters and so forth. And we've got work to do in terms of how we introduce those technologies and those forms of transportation safely into a community when you have density, when you have automobiles, when you have roadways that are not set up for sharing the road very effectively. So I don't want anybody on the outside of view that we are banning e-bikes. We're trying to address a public safety issue and make sure that we're treating that form of transportation just like we treat bicycles in the park. So I'm happy with the amendment as well to the ordinance in terms of the Bay Trail, but even the Bay Trail has spots that are not conducive to riding, whether it's a bike or an e-bike. So to Mayor Colson's point, I'd be happy to continue the dialogue and see how we can construct a evolving wave of policies that make sense.
Thank you.
That sounds like a second.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much. All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Madam City Clerk.
Burley,
Yes.
Councilmember Papajohn,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stevenson.
Yes.
Mayor Coulson.
Yes. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Moving on, and thank you to our friend who came. Did you come all the way from the South Bay? No, okay, good. Oh, in San Bruno. Okay, good. That makes me feel a little better. I was thinking maybe you came up from Los Gatos on your bike at night. So thank you for making the trek. We really appreciate you coming. Item J, approval of a quarterly investment report, period ending June 30th, 2024. Yes, and we have Ms. Lee who's pulled this off. Councilmember Lee?
Thank you, Mayor Coulson. I pulled this off because I want to re-examine the decision to have corporate notes in our investment portfolio. Having worked for a credit risk agency, I am very well aware, as all of you are who read the newspaper, that something that's rated investment grade can go bankrupt days later through fraud, through a run on the bank. We had First Republic Bank, Silicon Valley Bank in our own backyard as some recent examples of this. So I'm concerned about the amount we have of corporate credit in our portfolio, and I'd like to assess whether the return is worth the risk we take with it. Because there isn't a warning sign, or there's not enough of a warning sometimes when something goes down, and we do have millions of dollars in single names in some cases.
Yes, please. Director Scott, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I will just give a little bit background about the city's investment portfolio, how we're managing it. So city have investment policy, we update annually that developed based on the California Investment Code. So all the city investment policy need to comply with the code. Beyond that, and the city also contract with PFM asset management, helping city managing our portfolio. In terms for the corporation notes, it's about a little bit more than 10% of our investment portfolio. And then I did not separate look at the how much corporation notes like a generated income, but I just look at the entire portfolio as from the inception when we work with PFM 10 years ago to now, we generate about $18.2 million interest income, which is include corporation notes. So in terms for the management, when the PFM, when they procure or buy, sell investment, they always email to the city staff review and then agreed upon. If they do have some risk rating downgrade, they will send the memo to the city to notify this particular downgrading. And then also they have an analyzing about the risk or should be on hold depending on the term of the notes or not, or recommend us to sell right away. So we do receive those kind of alert. So staff based on the notification make a judgment call, and then that's currently how we're managing it. Of course, the investment policy and all approved by the council. If any changes made, we can definitely incorporate it. Yeah, so it's based on the council direction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Any other questions? Questions? Please, yes, Councilman Brownrigg.
Yeah, I don't think, I'm not sure I have a question so much as a comment whenever we get around to discussing the concept. And remind me, the bond holdings that we have, the corporate notes, are through our own direct acquisition of those notes, or are they part of a basket of securities that somebody else puts together?
PFM managing it, they will procure on the market. Yeah.
Okay, so they're independently held by the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not commingled, in other words, right? Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm going to do is open it up to any members of the public, and then we'll see about maybe if Director Scott's explanation was satisfactory, or if we would like to maybe pursue a different course of action. So are there any members of the public? Nothing? Anyone here in the room? Okay. So I think we all take Councilwoman Lee's, many of us up here have a lot of experience in the investment management world, and all of it's a little tiny bit different. We come at it from different ways, but she has some very good experience in working with the rating agencies. So I don't want to put any extra work on anyone, and this would take, a couple people, but one option would be if you would like to explore this recommendation that you'd like to make in greater detail, we could put a little subcommittee together, and the councilwoman and whoever we assign can learn a little more about this, and possibly either they learn, they're done, they're happy with it the way it is, or they can make a recommendation for the spring when we look at the policy for a change. And if we put a little subcommittee together, one important thing about that is even when you roll off on council, you could continue to work on that subcommittee. I believe it would be okay. Is that correct? May we do that? Is that
So it depends on how the subcommittee is formed.
not upstanding, but it would be maybe 2 meetings or something?
So if it was a subcommittee of just council members,
Yep,
then you can have an ad hoc.
that would be what we would do.
But if you were to include any non-council members, then it would be a committee that was subject to the Brown Act.
So I would say my recommendation would be just to do 2 council members, and it would be ad hoc, so it would only meet maybe once or twice with the staff, just to learn a little more in detail and get comfortable with the policy as it is, or to make a future recommendation. Councilman Brownrigg, I might ask, with your deep experience in the investment management world as well, would you consider?
I'd be happy to. I do think that's the kind of subject matter that is appropriate for a subcommittee to work on, because rather than have 5 people who are not super well prepared right now trying to have a conversation, I'm sure Councilmember Lee understands that that's not always the most productive. So I think I'd be happy to meet with the finance director and Councilmember Lee and talk about the risk profile and the return profile, because it's 2 sides of the coin, and public funds. So I'd be happy to do that, Madam President.
Would that be the pleasure of everyone else on this council?
Yes,
Okay, great.
thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Madam Councilmember Lee, would this be an appropriate course of action that would potentially satisfy your questions and working with staff, and then you're comfortable with this?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, very, very much. And Director Scott, are you all right to work on this? I don't think it's going to take anyone a lot of time, but it will, I think, assuage everyone. And, everyone brings something different. And I think this is the beauty of having 5 people up here, and we can all commit and present and explore our own questions. All right.
Sorry, up to you.
No, please.
I just wasn't sure if we had done public comment or haven't.
I believe I opened it to public comment and we didn't have any. So what I would like to do is, if possible, I would just like to approve the quarterly investment report,
Yeah.
which I think is appropriate to do today, with the recommendation with the recommendation that we create this ad hoc subcommittee to meet once or twice and explore the question of corporate debt in our portfolio. All right, someone want to make a motion? Councilwoman Lee?
Yes, I move to approve consent item J, the quarterly investment report.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Lee and a second by Vice Mayor Stevenson. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lee,
Yes.
Councilmember Papajohn,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stevenson,
Yes.
Mayor Coulson.
Yes. Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right, we will close that item, move on to our big topic of the evening. We have a staff report and communication. It's a discussion of our tree ordinance update, Burlingame Municipal Code Title 11, Trees and Vegetation. We have a staff report, and I see Rich Schultz is here to provide us an update. And this is just really feedback. There's no motion that we need to take today, I take it?
We are looking for some direction here as we
Okay.
move forward. Good evening,
Yes.
Mayor Coulson and fellow council members. Yes, this is now our 6th public meeting as it relates to making changes to Title 11, specifically Chapter 4, Chapter 11.04 and Chapter 11.06. 11.04 was completed in 1971 and it primarily remains unadjusted since then. That deals with our street trees, and Chapter 11.06 encompasses the rest of the trees. You can go to the next slide. I know you've seen a lot of these slides before, and for the benefit of our community, we do want to share some of this information without beating a dead horse. But as you know, you have actual draft language before you, and we are anticipating some potential questions. But we are very confident in what we have presented to you in the spirit of our community, what our history has been as it relates to trees and moving forward in a sustainable future for the urban forest. So we will be looking for some direction in terms of our next steps at the end of the presentation. But again, a lot of our code is antiquated at this point. At times, Chapter 11.04 and 11.06, depending on your interpretation, don't complement one another. They actually can run against one another. And we want to clean up a lot of our language to have one holistic 11.06 that encompasses all trees in Burlingame that would be protected. Some of the challenges are it just doesn't keep pace with modern arboriculture practices. It doesn't allow for equitable replacement or reforestation in relation to development. And it limits some of the tools that the city has available. There are some loopholes that we're confident that we are closing with this proposed language. And this doesn't happen often, but the way it's currently written is not an effective deterrent for those folks who are intentionally wrongdoing. Next slide, please. So we're almost at the year point from the beginning of our public meetings. We've heard a lot back from our community members, concerns about how trees are treated in relation to development, the rate at which protected trees are being removed, what appeal fees might be, what the removal process looks like. These are all topics that we had brought up at different points, concepts at different meetings, and the feedback that we had received. The factors that we consider when it comes to removing a tree, this idea of arborist shopping, where an applicant hires the professional that basically gives them the result they want, and now the city's stuck with this. We believe we have some language that helps us as we move forward with that. The effects of large trees and homeowners insurance. This is actually a subject that came up later in our public comments, and we believe that we have captured an ability to address that as one factor when it comes to potentially removing a tree, as well as we know we've heard a lot of support for native trees and plantings. Next slide, please. Our councils and our council and commissions have given us some great feedback as well. A lot of similar things, but some good questions to contemplate. What do we do when the giant tree in someone's backyard dies of natural causes? How do we move forward with that? The person has to deal with that financial burden, but we also want to see the trees being replaced in our urban forest. Tree protection versus state mandates, as you know, with development, our hands are tied in certain situations where we may not be able to prevent a tree's removal, but we can certainly do better about what that replacement looks like as we move forward. We've talked about this tree fund and the likely increase in funding that will go to that for the future plantings in our community. Could that be utilized for other benefits? And again, our language is the framework. Down the road, if it's something that council wishes to engage, we believe the ordinance as we've written it could provide for some of those opportunities. We've talked about outreach to new property owners, and you know, I have to say Parks and Rec is taking a page out of our great library friends. Apparently every month they get a list of new residents, and they send out a nice postcard that says, "Hey, welcome to Burlingame. Here's our library." So Parks and Rec is going to copy that. They're going to get a nice postcard that we are in the presence of designing, that will talk about the great coursework and classes we have at the community center, as well as important things like our tree ordinance, how we maintain our city trees, the easily consumable information for our new residents. We also talked about the preservation and reforestation opportunities for developers, and different species of replacement reforestation trees. And we did hear back about some undue burden on development. And I know for our tree preservationists, their ears are tingling here, but I think we found a very balanced approach. So how did we get here? Can we go to the next slide? We actually started this process with a lot of outreach, and this process was actually started prior in a different city attorney's office with a different city arborist in 2018. Our assistant city attorney Spansale and myself really dived deep, and we had a lot of great assistance from city staff. But we started out by reaching out to some communities that we believe do a great job with their own urban forests: Pasadena, Palo Alto, Menlo Park, and Sacramento. With Menlo Park and Sacramento, actually their own city arborists reviewing our language and saying, "Hey, this is some great things. We wish we thought of this," or, "You know, we tried to do this and it was a little difficult." We are Burlingame. We are not these other places. We've tried to pick the things that we believe are sustainable in our own community and bring that forth today. Next slide, please. Sorry, I did want to mention that we also coordinated a lot with our own public works and community development staff. We often overlap when it comes to development projects or city infrastructure. We want to make sure that we're gelling with a good path forward. So we started this process with kind of 5 goals. Defining the terms and roles, we believe we've accomplished this goal. We have expanded the definition of our protected trees, now closing that loophole. So when somebody has to replant a tree and they get their final from the city, they don't just say, "Oh, see you later, little tree." That is protected in perpetuity. As we move forward, more and more private trees, regardless of side, will now be tracked in our GIS system as a protected tree. Clarity of responsibilities. To my knowledge, there hasn't been this incident, but at present we have 2 commissions that really could negate each other. One commission could approve a project or a process, and another commission could say no. So this cleans up that process on who does what. Development was kind of the big elephant in the room. How do we move forward with that? And I think we've done a good job of crafting language that encompasses what our responsibilities are regarding the state mandates, as well as what we want to see replenished, and especially with the preservation requirements. We want to see more trees preserved if possible on projects, not just putting it on a piece of paper and you get it approved and then you start scraping. You're not going to get your permit until we see these tree preservation measures in place ahead of time. A big one, and again, this is also a recent development from feedback received, was the idea of a real estate disclosure. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I do want to give significant credit to City Attorney Gina for researching and finding some language that we were able to borrow from a neighbor. We've talked in detail about our removal process with increased public notification and the expanded factors that we will evaluate when it comes to removing a tree, both for opportunities to remove a tree and opportunities to retain a tree. With the overall, if this tree is significantly contributing to the urban forest, and that factor over rules whatever the mitigation factor would be, then our vote would to keep the tree, retain the tree. Of course, the applicant would have the right to appeal to a commission, and we could move forward there in the public process. We've talked about the replacement requirements, and we are increasing what those would be and differentiating between commercial and residential. There's some minor tweaks. I'll share some charts with you here shortly, as well as planting alternatives. Just to be clear, our goal is always to have trees in the ground in the place where they should be or where they came from. That isn't always the case. That will always be our goal. But in those situations where we really can't, as a last effort, we want to create some of these opportunities rather than having what occurs now. It says, well, there's no room for the tree. We're just not going to do anything. At least planting the tree somewhere else in the neighborhood or getting some funds to plant the trees somewhere else we could do. And again, lastly, we have looked at the penalties and the increases there. The fines will always be limited to $1,000 per occurrence. That is state statute. However, in the civil penalties, we can look at damages, we can look at replacement cost, the actual valuation of what that tree would be. And again, in the most egregious of situations, criminal penalties such as misdemeanor. Next slide. So the real estate disclosure, this is something that we really didn't see a lot of in some municipal codes. I believe we heavily borrowed from San Jose here. And what it says is that 7 days prior to the close of a real estate transaction or transfer of ownership, there would be a disclosure that comes forward and says, these are the protected trees on your property or adjacent your property. I believe we had some questions about what you mean a neighbor's property. No, we're talking in the city right of way, alleyways, utility easements. Those that might, and a property owner might presume are their own trees, could be their own trees. Either way, it's going to be designated and laid out there. Parks and Recreation would provide the form to the property owner upon request. Next slide, please. So you've seen these charts before. The top one really isn't any different, but just to, again, share for those who maybe are hearing this at home for the first time, DSH is diameter standard heights measured at 54 inches above grade. And that is the industry term, how a tree is measured. If a commercial development, commercial property needed to plant a tree, say 20 inches of DSH, they removed a 20-inch DSH tree. According to this chart, they would need to plant 20 15-gallon trees. That's just an example. What if they can't plant 20 on there? Well, that differentiation, whatever that calculation would be, say they planted 10 15-gallon trees, they have a deficit of 10 DSH. There would be a multiplication factor, basically a fee per inch that was not planted that would go into the tree fund. We can't say what Burlingame's will be. That is part of a fee study, but I can share as an example, the city of Sacramento uses $325 per DSH. So in the example I just shared, it would be $3,250 into the tree fund to plant elsewhere in the community. That isn't different than anything you've seen before. What is slightly different is the bottom chart, the residential replacement concept. Number of factors. We heard that it was a little confusing. There were so many different criteria from the public. What we also heard from our neighboring communities that are very involved in urban forestry is it's very difficult for them to enforce. The larger the container size, the more cost prohibitive it is, the more difficult it is to get these large trees in some of the smaller areas. But the biggest thing is the limit on the species availability and the people who do this kind of work. As an example, the city of Burlingame has a project going on right now. We needed to plant a couple 48 inches of box trees. They were $10,000 each. So this can be very expensive. And that's why we want to have the option for some smaller trees in those situations that have limited real estate and could be very challenging. And they're also put in a crane, right? You're not going to get a crane likely behind someone's house to plant a tree. Next slide. So we heard about natives, and we haven't really seen a lot of this in other places. Other places do require natives, not all, but some do. We didn't feel that Burlingame should require natives. The director always has the ability to say, no, this area needs a native for whatever purpose that might be. But we choose the route of incentivizing native planting. And if you look at this chart, it's basically with the commercial side, you get twice the credit, or if you look at the residential side, it's half the requirement, whether it's a smaller container size or it's a smaller quantity. That shouldn't be confused with, oh, well, they don't have to, they're going to plant less than they do now. Again, what we are going forward with is a greater requirement than what we presently have today. In this situation on this chart, in all instances, except for the 14 to 29 inch, they are all meet today's standard or increased. We believe, and it's not going to be all native trees as the language is written. The director will maintain a list of trees that would be qualify for that, because a lot of native trees are actually smaller trees, and we're talking about trees that are going to be contributors, good contributors to our urban forest. Next slide. Again, a familiar chart, very minimal changes here. This is, we call reforestation when it comes to development and needing to replant based upon square footage of the home when it comes to a single family or 2-unit dwelling. But anything larger, it's based upon the structural lot coverage. What do we do on these projects that have a lot of asphalt? That's something that wasn't factored in. So that's why we thought on these projects, we need to have the square feet of paving included as well. That way the designers frame in, islands to plant trees. So we don't have this giant heat island. We can get a canopy in these paved areas. The alternative reforestation options, again, underscoring that these are reserved for a last ditch effort if we cannot get a tree in on a location. There can be an in lieu fee, off-site planting, as well as a modified schedule that is approved by the Director of Parks and Recreation. Next slide. So a few factors I just wanted to talk about that I think deserve highlighting or are a little bit newer is this idea of a unique economic burden. And this really is born out of this idea of homeowners getting their policies canceled because of trees. I will say by and large, our community loves their trees and they are on the side of preserving and keeping the spirit of Burlingame alive. But we do get some calls every now and then that folks come up with excuses, and we have to do some serious vetting when it comes to these. I think the operative word here is it's very unique to this property. It's not, this tree drops leaves and I have to clean my gutters once a month, so that costs me more money. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about something that is very specific, and it is going to take some massaging on our part to do the vetting of what the claim might be. But that is one of many factors that the director can consider when it comes to potential of removing a tree. But it is an important one that I think in our modern time, as, and I'll bore you with my opinions of the insurance industry in California, but I myself have had my own insurance canceled, and I've chosen at my home to keep my tree rather than just clear cut. It's unfortunate that in some situations that is what's going on, but we do believe it is a factor that we should consider in a holistic approach. As we know, this is a framework. It's not going to be all encompassing. We're not going to figure every single thing out now. We want to make sure that the director has the ability to create regulations in the furtherance of what our spirit is for our urban forestry program in chapter 11.06. So we have some language in there that gives that person the ability to create those regulations to move forward with that framework. Again, underscoring that we have significant increased tree preservation requirements, and that we are closing this big loophole of the trees that get planted, regardless of size, are now a protected tree. Just because I don't believe we ever mentioned this before, to be clear, this effort, this new 11.06 rescinds the current 11.04, which affects street trees, and the current 11.06, which affects all other trees. It's one holistic, all-encompassing proposal. So next slide, please. Thank you. So I think your question, what is the action for the city council? That depends. We're going to have some conversation here. And, while we are confident in the work that we've done to get to this point, there may need to be some massaging. Do you want us to make some tweaks and get it over for CEQA analysis? Would you like us to come back to council or commission before going to CEQA? So that's kind of what we're looking at. It's difficult. You don't have an easy job. None of us do, in trying to get everyone on the same page and try to take care of everyone's concerns. I think as we've approached this, we've heard individuals sharing their thoughts, and we're doing our best to see how that fits the framework of what we've been doing, of what other folks are doing. I think if we're having a difference of opinion tonight, then perhaps you should put something to a vote so we have a very clear direction on what's getting adjusted.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much for amazing arborist. And thank you for all this work, and to the commissions. It's a lot of detail to revise something that hasn't been touched in years and years. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to colleagues for questions. Then we'll take some public comment, and then we can provide direction. So does anyone on the dais have questions? I know we have been through this numerous times. So the fact that there aren't questions is because this is probably the fourth time or so we've seen it in some capacity or read about it. And so we have asked a lot of questions along the way. Yes, please.
Madam Mayor, I do have one question, and that is, does this require a full CEQA review, or is it a mitigated negative deck, or?
So this, sorry, excuse me, any regulation that has the potential to make it harder, or sorry, to make it easier to take out a tree, even if it's just one small element that is otherwise protecting far more trees, has to go through a CEQA analysis. Whether that's an EIR, that probably would not be the case, but it needs to be analyzed to determine what CEQA review is necessary. That was made clear by a case that came out not too long ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, from a California city here not too far away, that did not do that CEQA review and just assumed that CEQA was not necessary, which came with a challenge. So we want to make sure that we present it for CEQA review, understand if there are any mitigations necessary, have that analyzed, and then conduct whatever review is recommended.
Thank you for that clarification.
It's slightly counterintuitive, right? Like protecting the environment, we need to make sure we're not causing a problem protecting the environment. Oh, okay. Right? That's sort of confusing. All right. Anyone else have questions? Yes. Anyone? No? Okay. So we have no additional questions. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to members of the public. I think there were a few things that were sent in. Please, Madam City Clerk.
Yes. Our first email comes from Brian Ben, and I'm going to time myself. Okay. I appreciate the work of the city on this update and respectfully submit the following 5 suggestions. Reconsider the replacement tree requirements. As an example, if needed to remove our 40 diameter tree and preferred to plant 15-gallon replacement trees, we would need to plant 4 of them. We already have 11 other medium and small trees on our parcel, such that adding 4 more would be impractical. There would not be space for them to all grow properly to maturity. Soon they would be crowding each other, and there would be penalties for removing them, since they too would be protected trees. We would prefer not to have to pay hefty costs for larger replacement trees. These replacement requirements may become a significant problem as replacement trees mature, and they in turn require such numerous replacements. 2, a $325 per inch in lieu fee seems high. The fee applicable for our one large tree would be $13,000. 3, consider clarifying or specifying that removal of protected trees may be approved with no penalty or replacement requirements. A, for natural causes, disease or death of the tree, or B, if required for compliance with official wildfire protection standards. 4, paragraph 11.06.060C3, consider distinguishing between existing and newly proposed main structures with respect to potential alterations. Consider how to close a potential loophole where a removal application may be made based on damage to an existing structure when the applicant intends to redevelop. Example, perhaps by prohibiting redevelopment permits for a period of time in such circumstances. 5, paragraph 11.06.050H require utilities to obtain a permit from the city prior to any removals or excessive pruning of city trees. Require 30-day advance notice to the city except for emergencies. The city should notify affected residents in advance. Okay, my next email comes from Gerard Manning. He states, I request that the council allow trimming or removal of trees that block rooftop solar panels on private residences. While trees are a huge benefit to the city, solar panels are far more efficient at avoiding climate change, and locally produced power will be critical in the next few decades as electricity use grows and the distribution grid comes under greater stress. With the recent changes in solar power rates, even a little bit of shading now makes it uneconomical to install solar panels, and the current tree ordinance is holding back many residents from doing the right thing by the climate. Thank you for your consideration. Our next email comes from Leslie McQuaid. She says, it was a lengthy report, but the one comment I question is enforcing tree replacement by property owners. Houses in town are large new construction or remodels, or a new neighbor after moving in doesn't want the tree from their existing neighbor to block their views or sun or drop leaves or other issues like interfere with their drainage or sidewalk safety that they didn't notice while moving in. Burlingame residents have lots of money, so for them to pay a penalty is no big deal. If they don't want to plant a new tree on their property, they will just pay the penalty fee. How are you going to control the option of pay or replant? And how will you control a problem with a neighbor's tree that has been there for years that the new owner feels should be removed? Our next email comes from Chris Cannon. Thank you for the complete and thoughtful proposal of a new tree ordinance. The definitions of terms is helpful. I support this ordinance and believe it will continue to protect and promote Burlingame as our city of trees. And our next email comes from John Easterbrook. He says, I've noticed that many of the sycamores around town look quite distressed. I live east of Burlingame High School / Washington Park and noticed the trees in this neighborhood in particular. What is the cause, and is there a plan for dealing with this? It would appear to be a lot of trees that may need replacing in the near future. And that is the emails I received.
All right. Are there any members of the public in the audience today that have comments on the?
I did receive an email from Jennifer Pfaff, but I believe she also emailed.
He copied all of us.
Copied all.
too. So yeah, if somebody wants to bring it up, they may after this. Anyone in the audience, please come up.
Yeah, I just want to do some comments from my experience with the trees in Caltrans. And so of course, the city's a little different than the highways, but we had like the arborists to classify the dead trees before the rainy season and all that. So we would classify them and then remove them based on the safety for the public. That's one thing that I'd like to share, that it was very serious. And the other one that was, if it is in contact with utilities, we would trim, remove, whatever it takes for these things. And that's what I did on 23, 22, when it was raining a lot and we wanted to protect the safety of public. So was removing them was all based on the arborists that I worked with. So that was the criteria. If anything, it can help also the city to do the same or maybe similar. It's just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? If not, we'll close public comment. Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment, and we will. Would anyone like to provide any feedback or kind of direction?
Madam Mayor?
Yes. Yes,
If-
Councilwoman.
If our arborist could address maybe some of the questions that Mr. Ben brought up. I'm curious about like the price per inch, the tree 325, if we think that's too expensive or not. And then the other one was, I know he said something about permitting requirements for utilities and just the replacement. Shoot, I missed the very first one.
It was replacement trees, feeling that there would, requiring certain number of replacement trees could potentially be too many. I think there were some options, like you can do one of a certain size, or you can do 3 or 4 of a smaller size. So
Yeah, so thank you very much, Councilwoman Papajohn. The 325 per inch, as a reminder, that is a commercial application. And that was an example. We don't know what our fee would be. We would have to do a fee study. That's an example of what Sacramento charges, and it's for commercial applications, not for residential applications. You know, and, you know, I guess the example you provided, if you were moving a 40-inch tree, I don't know if you said it was $13,000 or something. Yeah, if you're not going to replace the tree, you could be paying a significant fee. That is our goal. It's much less expensive to plant the tree, which is what our goal would be. If you're not going to, then the city will be utilizing those funds to plant trees elsewhere, and that costs us our time to get that tree established for the first several years of life. So that is what the intent. It's not meant to be punitive. It's just this is what the actual cost would be for our staff to establish a tree somewhere else if you are not going to comply with the ordinance and plant a tree on your own property. There on the chart, there are several options. If he wanted to plant, in the example, use 15-gallon trees, 4 of them, you could do 2 24-inch boxes, you know, or if you can, the director has the ability to modify and adjust based upon site conditions. One of the things that is likely to change, and this is part of the ordinance language, is rather than just coming in, you get your permit, and, you know, hey, you replace the tree, you need to come in with a plan. What tree are you going to plant? Where's it going to go? What size are you going to plant? So people really comprehend, you know, it's not just getting the tree out, no, we'll deal with everything later. Obviously, emergency situations accepted. This is a thoughtful process. This tree is contributing to our community, and we want to see a replacement. What can we do and work together? It is more staff time that will be involved for that, but we are committed to that for the future of our community. Regarding utility permitting, we even have that currently now in our ordinance. The challenge is that, let's just pick on PG&E because I always pick on them. They are regulated by the PUC. Burlingame Municipal Code does not supersede what the PUC gives PG&E authority to do in the name of safety. I think we've done a really good job at improving our relationship. For the first time last week, they sent us a list of trees that they plan on removing throughout Burlingame, both public and private. Unfortunately, some of those have already been removed. Now that we have this list, we are going to notify residents. We're kind of beholden to PG&E. We don't know when they're going to do the work. We have an idea, hey, sometime in the next 3 months. But on our part, we want to give them that because unfortunately, some of our community members are caught by surprise. According to PG&E, they do send out their postcards and notifications, and maybe it looks like junk mail to some people, and it's just out the door. But you know, we are really improving our collaboration with PG&E. But similar to Caltrans, they don't really need our permission. It's more just a collaborative effort in the spirit of our community. I believe I think those were the 3. Did I address those? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for clarifying.
There was another question about the, you know, basically to take out the trees in order for solar panels. And I mean, just as a person who's on, you know, Peninsula Clean Energy, and we're definitely advocating for solar panels, but I don't think that it's necessarily an accurate argument to say that removing a tree is like putting a solar panel in is better for the environment, especially with Peninsula Clean Energy, when you're getting a lot of your energy delivered, you know, met through solar already. There are enormous benefits to having trees shade a home in terms of keeping it cool. So I know I brought it up with Peninsula Clean Energy, and they were okay, they didn't think we needed to be cutting down trees to put solar up. If anyone else has any thoughts on that?
Madam Mayor, if I could.
Yes, please.
Add, you know, previous arborist Bob Disco did a great job on our last iteration of the Urban Forest Management Plan in 2021. We do have language there. It really references the California Solar Shade Act, and it kind of becomes the chicken and the egg. You know, if the tree was there before the solar, sorry, too bad, so sad, tree wins. If the tree is growing up, then there's a conversation to be had. Unfortunately, a lot of these things are private matters. You know, in the reference of a neighbor has a tree that they love and they're rearing, and now it's shading out. Solar panels, that's a conversation they need to have, and it's not really something the city gets very involved in. The city does provide for a no-fee conflict resolution through, I believe it's Peninsula Conflict Resolution. And we've certainly referred residents to that when they've had conflicts on property lines between, hey, your tree's causing this problem. You know, we don't want to get mired in those types of arguments. You know, that's a private conflict that needs to be resolved.
Other questions? Anyone? Yes, Councilman Browning.
I have a strong predilection to move forward because we have been doing this
Yeah.
a long time. And, you know, unlike what Moses brought down from the mountaintop, it's not carved in stone and they are allowed to change. So that is my bias tonight. That said, one of Mr. Ben's questions, I thought, at least, first of all, let me just say as a parenthetical, it's actually, at least for me, extremely difficult to process that complex a letter on the fly.
Right.
So to the extent that letters like that
And come beforehand.
or something, because it's actually quite difficult to follow the logic of a resident when it's paragraphs long. I mean, the city clerk does a great job, but I'll just make that. That said, there was one item I thought that he suggested, which I was wondering about, and that was what happens. It's one thing if you voluntarily want to take out a tree, remove a tree, or building a new garage, whatever that might be. That's your choice. But what if you are compelled to take out the tree, as I think was one of his questions, because either it's dead or the utilities are requiring you to take it out or something else? Should you be held to the same replacement standards and cost as if you did this voluntarily? And I wonder what you think about that question.
So we have researched this with other communities, and other communities do not differentiate between natural cause of death or elective removal. It's still based upon size. It's about what this tree contributed to the community. And that is unfortunate in the case of certain species that we know can have a high mortality due to disease. We did not carve out for that based upon our research on what other communities have done.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be one of those things we could sort of watch and look and see. And if it begins to be difficult, whatever, we could work. I want to hear from other people. I do want to say, we have the replacement tree fund. But I kept reading through it, and there were also some representations about also maintenance. And I'm wondering if it should be the replacement and maintenance tree fund. Is that it? I think nomenclature is important. I just don't know if it would be used for maintenance or not.
So we have a definition of the tree replacement fund, I believe. Give me 1 second here.
While you're looking that up, so one of the wonderful things about walking precincts is that you meet a lot of really interesting people. And one of the people I met was a gentleman who works for a company that works for PG&E and Caltrans and the cities, and he's been working around town here. He's now in the East Bay. And he had this amazing brochure that I'm going to give to you. And it's called A Selection and Planting Guide to Small Trees. He was very excited about sharing this with me. He may even be online listening, but he has a very strong background, young man in his 20s, I believe. And this is what he does. He works for these companies, and I actually really tried to recruit him to apply for beautification, which apparently he has a conflict with his classes at CSM. But he gave this to me, and I'm going to give it to you. And there's inside of it is a beautiful poster that you can frame with all the amazing small trees that they recommend.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So
Thank you very much, Nathan McFarland. Call out to you.
As Assistant City Attorney Spansale pointed out here, 11.06.08 tree planting and replacement fund. It's a long paragraph here. I will not read for your benefit here, but we crafted this. The idea is the furtherance of our urban forest. And one of the early concepts we had here is, could these funds be utilized to help maintain some of these large private trees? We believe the way the language has been crafted here that it could be. Our intent is primarily tree planting and replacement, but through council resolution, we could certainly utilize those funds for others. So if it's labeled the tree planting and replacement fund, if there's something other, like we could add maintenance.
Clarify. I think it's fine.
Okay.
I just kept reading, and I was like, wanted to understand when it would be maintenance versus replacement.
Yeah, to be clear, this isn't, we're not looking at these funds for, funding our staff or something like that.
Right.
It's for the furtherance of newly planted trees or, if council ended up having resolution for some other tree purpose.
Got it. That makes sense. Okay. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, a question. My general sense is the larger the diameter of the box and the tree that that is the replacement tree, the more expensive it is. It's not linear, right? So that question that was raised by the public about let's say you have a dying tree and you got to take it out and you're going to replace it. It almost incents, the program almost incents them to put 4 15-gallon trees in instead of one large one.
Because
And yet right, because of cost. But our incentive would be trying to replace that tree. And they bring up a good argument that maybe their lot is so small that putting in 4 trees that ultimately get mature becomes a different problem. So is there anything that fund could do that would change that schedule, that there's more incentive to be a 1-for-1 with a larger box tree in that type of scenario?
I'm gonna, can I pipe in here just real
Oh,
quick?
absolutely.
So the one thing we do know is that the larger box trees, in addition to being really expensive to plant, have a lower survival rate, actually. They are,
But instead of 4, maybe it's 2, or, yeah. 3.
yeah, yeah, please.
Sorry.
Just having.
I just wanted to add really quickly too, that the tree replacement and tree planting and replacement fund is really there just kind of as a repository to make sure that all of these funds that we're capturing from our tree program are now coming into a single place that we can figure out the uses for it later.
Mhm.
So right now, we're not quite as in the weeds on what the tree planting and replacement fund could do. That can absolutely be done through implementing guidelines or through council resolution.
Mhm.
We're just trying to make sure, as we've seen other really good tree cities do, that there is a pot that we can then pull from to fund these great programs that we're able to think of sooner. So to the council, or sorry, to the vice mayor's point, that is something that we could certainly study. I know our city arborist has also put some great language in here too. If there is a site that cannot handle that many trees, that's actually within their discretion to determine whether there's too many trees on that site that can be sustained. So that could be an off-site planting. There's ways that we're able to capture that fear there as well. And I think, as the city arborist said earlier, there's going to be a lot more involvement in these permits at the earlier stage now too. So instead of just saying, please plant 4 trees in your backyard, the city arborist office is going to be looking through this to determine where can I plant these 4 trees to make sure that they live long, healthy lives. And that's something that I think we've tried to do today, but we're going to do a better job in with this ordinance.
Thank you.
And I think the sort of spirit of this document is that our staff has some discretion to make intelligent decisions that don't have to come back to the council. And I feel very comfortable with that in how it goes. And I also think that homeowners will make decisions, because you might take out a giant redwood tree. It's got a circumference of 20 feet, like a huge tree. And you may not want to plant one big redwood tree back there because you're going to end up with the same problem. So there's also species. You could buy 4 smaller trees that aren't going to get as big. So there's all kinds of like machinations that you can imagine this would go, and you'll help the homeowners figure all that out.
Absolutely, yeah. We've had these situations, again, this is through our actual experience here, the challenges that we have encountered, right? Where we do have a property that removes 3 large redwood trees for just reason and then puts in 3 small flowering plum trees. That's not
Doesn't work.
equivalent. And that's part of the director's ability to require specific species or specific sizes in certain situations. We're not trying to shove these trees down folks' throats. We want to allow them a good option, but it needs to be commensurate with what the removal is.
Okay, so we have one council member who's sort of ready to go on to the next CEQA. I would support that as well. 3,
Yes.
4?
Yes, I did want to make
Yeah, please.
a comment first, Mayor Colson. Just some concern about the 500 staff hours. I guess that'll just get absorbed. You're not planning to add staff for the.
Yeah, I mean, this is an estimate at this point based
Yeah.
upon what our current mailing time
Yeah.
happens.
Okay.
take, with us now including the larger size city trees in a 300-foot mailing. It is significant staff time. We are wrapping up some projects, and we believe that we are going to absorb that and work that into our schedule.
Okay, thank you. And then you mentioned that there'll be outreach to new property owners, and I would just encourage, I mean, this is jumping the gun a bit, but if and when this ordinance passes, make sure existing owners are aware of this too. It's not intuitive to people that the tree in their backyard is not theirs to cut down, or that most people, I think, don't even understand the median is public space.
Right.
And I know one of the new rules in here, maybe it existed and nobody knew about it, is that just planting anything in the median, a tree, a bush, anything, it does require an agreement from the director. And I worry that that'll get burdensome, and maybe, again, we're jumping the gun on implementation, but maybe, an approved list of species that can be planted for ground cover or whatever people are planting there. There's certainly, as you walk around the neighborhoods, it's all over the place with.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
But I'm in favor of.
Okay, great. Is that enough direction to proceed?
Yeah.
That is great. Thank you very much. And we'll
Okay.
back following SEQA review. We're not sure exactly how long that will take because it's going to be dependent upon what the consultant tells us.
Okay,
But
so you'll hire a CEQA consultant, they do the review, and then they get back to us, and we anticipate sometime in the first quarter of next year or something around there, probably second quarter, first half of next year.
we're hoping for the first quarter. That would
Okay.
If I think,
Yes, please.
so this is just a discussion then, not a motion or anything.
Right.
Giving you guidance. So two very quick things. I thought we were going to wind up doing the whole motion stuff. One, I appreciate the comments from Councilmember Lee with respect to making sure existing homeowners know about this too.
Yes.
I think we really need to work hard to make sure people understand both our urban forest, and then would add as a PS, and also the gardening restrictions, because it's all about how we treat our natural environment and bear in mind our neighbors and their peace and their enjoyment as well. So, I mean, I'd love the idea of sending out cards to realtors. I'd say do that as often as we can with all of these different really specific rules about how we want our natural environment to grow and to be treated on behalf of everybody in Burlingame. So I want to thank you for that. And just since we're talking trees for a second, I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but my street was deemed a theme street. And the theme of our street is oaks, which we love oaks, but they're planted underneath PG&E wires. And I just don't know whether it's such a great idea to insist on trees that are clearly going to create a conflict with PG&E. So I mean, you've seen these trees, they're all pruned like V's, and especially with oaks, ultimately that leads to limb
collapse.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just a small thing. It's nothing to do with the tree ordinance, but since we're talking trees, can we try to adopt some common sense when it comes to the trees we plant?
Yeah, trees under what? That brochure I just gave has a whole list.
Right.
I'm sure an oak is not in there.
It's actually what put me in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for the work.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to future agenda items. Does anyone have, oh, actually, it takes us to committee reports first. Does anyone have a committee report they want to make? The only thing I'm going to say is I went to Burlingame Live. I think you went a day or two. I went 3 days, and Chamber hit it out of the ballpark with it. There were little tiny kids dancing with senior citizens, and so everyone was happy. And really what was nice is a whole bunch of neighbors wandered down from 150 Park, the Burlingame Village, and enjoyed the evening, and standing ovation request for us to continue, and even maybe think about doing something like I know it's a lot to ask the chamber, but they were like, anything else you can add on, we loved it.
Nice.
So just a lot of really good positive feedback. Yes.
And thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just add that the thing that struck me is, while I love Art on the Avenue, it's a lot of vendors that where people are spending their time and their money, and certainly there's a cut for for the chamber and all, and that's great. But this was just
For people.
music and people, and they were using the restaurants and doing different things. So I hope we continue it. It was very positive.
It really was. Okay.
Madam Mayor, just
Yeah.
briefly, I
Yeah.
did circulate to colleagues this evening a press release that Hart is issuing, has to do with preservation, which has been a goal that this council said it was interested in working on. So I just happy to take questions later on about the program, and we at Hart, we hope to expand it.
That's great. Okay, future agenda items.
Sorry.
Yes, please.
Madam Mayor. So one, just before I make a suggestion, I want to thank, it doesn't get said often enough. I want to thank you, Madam Mayor, for the letters that you have written to our residents during the course of your mayorship. And it's really terrific volume. And for anyone who hasn't been mayor, when it happens, it's a lot of work, and you've handled it extremely well. And always there's some incident that comes up that elicits dozens of angry letters or whatever. And so I really want to thank you for that. I am struck by how many of the letters that both you have had to address and frankly, I addressed last year have to do with traffic and safety in one way or another. And, I note, for example, that there was a coordinated letter writing campaign about the intersection of Oak Grove and California. But that's just one. And then there was Carmelita, a bunch of questions about. And so I'm left with this is a somewhat inchoate suggestion, but I continue to feel that the Teaspoon Committee meeting once a month is just not enough dialogue for our residents about what's going on. And I'm not sure that, I've suggested it before and it hasn't been met with widespread approval in terms of increasing the number of meetings. So I'm willing to believe that's not a great idea. But somehow there needs to, maybe it's a QR code on Carmelita where you can, instead of you writing to a council member saying, what the hell is going on? You can get the QR code and you can figure it out. Everyone knows what a QR code is. And so anywhere where we're putting in temporary traffic things, or here's a QR code in the same way we have see it, report it, whatever that thing is called.
See it, click it, fix it.
Yeah, click it, fix it. You have a intersection you're concerned about, log it. I just feel that somehow our city needs to have a more robust dialogue with residents about traffic and even the e-bike
Safety.
falls in that.
Safety, traffic, safety.
Traffic and safety, especially as we become more dense, we are going to have more cars. It is going to be
More bikes, more pedestrians.
exactly. And so somehow I feel like we're leaving a lot on your shoulders in letters. And so anyway, I just wanted to kind of put that on the table, that I feel like the process isn't exactly, it's just insufficient.
Maybe Madam City Manager, I have an idea on, which is possibly with the Vice Mayor next year. And when you guys are thinking about our annual planning, I don't know if that's something that could go in there.
Sorry, discussing it during the goal setting?
Yeah, is that a goal that we, would it it's under his purview, but saying transfer here to there instead of.
Yeah, we can certainly, the Vice Mayor and I haven't started chatting yet about what the goal setting is going to look like, but we can, throw that into the hopper as we decide what.
I think just to start the dialogue, instead of just always.
Reactive.
Always been so exactly. And it's, usually there's a pretty good story to tell. Peninsula has been a problem. We know that. And there's finally actions that are being taken. So both how do you identify a problem, and then more importantly, how can you as a resident find out what's going on?
Yeah, and stay up to date.
Yeah.
And I can, Mayor Colson, I can quantify, since I've been on council or had an city email for 6 or 7 weeks, there have been 86 emails about traffic in that time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah. so
And
anyway.
Madam Mayor's had to.
Yeah, and those are the ones that you were copied on. Right.
And just since I have the mic, this is separate, but I also want to thank, and I know we all do, but I want to thank our city clerk and the League of Women Voters for organizing two candidate forums above and beyond, especially for our city clerk to take her time and effort to create a dedicated forum for district, whatever the number is. And so thank you for that. That's part of what makes a robust democracy. So appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you very much. No other any members of the public, future agenda items? Excellent. Okay, acknowledgements. Does anyone have any acknowledgements?
I'd just like to, Madam Mayor, may I? I would just like to, Councilmember Brownrigg kind of beat me to it, but I just want to acknowledge, also echo what you said about the city clerk and all the work that has been added just because of the election. And, I know it's part of the job, but it's on now even years. And so now all, the elections are in the same time. And just being on the other side of it now, I see just how much work it is. So I just want to acknowledge you. You've done it just very professionally, thoroughly, and really want to thank you.
All right. I do have one acknowledgement. So I know many of you saw that there was a lot of police activity on Carmelita, and Mahir Karaman reached out to me as a representative from the Kurdish community to let me know that unfortunately they lost Sidar Ergin, age 26, at 1415 Carmelita this last week. But interestingly, I asked him if he wanted to share any information about this young person. And what he really said was, I'd like to share with you, I'd like you to share just with colleagues that they had tried to go into the community center and couldn't because it was such short notice and staffing. So it's nothing wrong with our thing or anything, but as in acknowledging, he explained the situation to me. I'll work with Park and Rec director, but that was their community really, they say to me, we as a Kurdish community love Burlingame Community Center and love to have our events there. And this was an emergency situation. And so how do we think about handling, on behalf of a family like this that we're going to acknowledge tonight in our, how do we handle it? I don't want to get any questions here, but it's kind of a future agenda item or just something we'll work with staff, and they've been very helpful. I just wanted to let you all know in case anybody asked. And so if we could close tonight in honor and memory of Sidar Ergin, age 26, a member of our beloved Kurdish community in Burlingame. Thank you all very much. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting.